In another back lot, there are dozens of cars that appear to have been involved in collisions that have caused severe damage to the vehicles. However, for some reason, they have been towed to Livingston's, where some appear to have been stripped. Wheels are removed. Trunks are left open. I believe that in normal cases, cars that are involved in serious motor vehicle accidents and are totaled out are then towed to junkyards where the insurance companies make arrangements to sell them to companies that buy totaled cars. That's their business. When you are involved in a motor vehicle accident and your car is totaled, your car usually isn't towed to the nearby snowmobile dealership where it is then dropped in a back field somewhere with dozens of other cars to then be stripped of whatever the local mechanics deem valuable, like your car's rims or whatever is in your trunk. Livingston's doesn't advertise any of that on their website. They say they sell snowmobiles and they do mechanic work. They do not say anything about being a junkyard, a scrap metal yard, an auto body shop. So this is just an odd sight, like the hundreds of disintegrating snowmobiles left in the middle of a field. Walking back the other way, Livingston appears to have also acquired this extremely nice lawnmower called the Dixie Chopper. It looks like some sort of souped up 0-point turn lawnmower, and it appears to be a heavy duty machine for cutting large fields of grass. They have also acquired the Dixie Chopper trailer that comes equipped with a Dixie Chopper billboard advertisement. So it seems that this was meant to be a demonstration or a sales model and then driven around by salespeople to different events like state fairs to attempt to market and then sell. But then, for some reason, this expensive lawnmower and their fancy sales trailer have wound up in the back of Livingston's garage, thrown back there with the thousands of other vehicles. And there is a tag on the lawnmower that says David Hood. On the right, you can see some of the green Arctic Cat crates that I guess the snowmobiles are shipped in. And these things, flattened, are what lay in giant piles along the back road. And on the left, you could see a side yard where yet another dozen more snowmobiles are left. They appear maybe to be from the late 90s or maybe in the 2000s sometime. However, they apparently have no resale value either. And the management at Livingston's has no desire whatsoever to even cover them up, so they do not wind up like the hundreds of other snowmobiles they have stacked up everywhere else on their property. And they even have somebody's 10-speed bike thrown over there too. So it looks like Livingston's is in the business of taking it all. Even if it's somebody's 10-speed bike or a 5-year-old kid's Huffy, Livingston's will take it and throw it in the back of their property. Toward the front, they have another lot with several cars parked over there too. And they also appear to have been involved in collisions. And then, if you notice, they have two large trailers one that says NEWW 24, and they are cutting off the view from the street so Livingstons can hide whatever is happening in the back of their business concerning them acquiring whatever vehicle they could get their hands on, including quads, snowmobiles, ATVs, off-road vehicles, cars, trucks, trailers, lawnmowers, 10 speeds, and even little kids' bikes. Then there is another lot filled with later model snowmobiles that look used but slightly newer, and these are all mixed in with quads. Again, they are not separating the equipment, which is what most normal dealerships will do to make it easier for customers to find what they're looking for and then to buy the vehicle. The owners of Livingstons aren't even bothering dividing the quads from the snowmobiles to make their lot even a little organized or customer oriented. Then there is an alley that runs between the buildings, and they have a series of tents where they have a dozen or so very old snowmobiles, and they obviously have a special place in the heart of Livingstons because these are the only snowmobiles that have some sort of covering to them, unlike the hundreds of other snowmobiles out there in the snowmobile graveyard. On the right hand side is another tent, and underneath it is what I believe are called snowmobile sleighs. They are trailers that hook to snowmobiles that you could pull additional passengers in. So in my opinion, this is what Livingston appears to be interested in selling. He has these vintage snowmobiles under tents, he has these sleighs for passengers, and then he has a dozen or so brand new snowmobiles. So that is what is up front for customers to see when they walk into the Livingston's dealership. So I am looking through the Night Riders website here, and there's only a few pages on it with very limited information. And what is interesting to note is that they have many photographs of what they call vintage snowmobiles, very old snowmobiles. So it says under upcoming events that their annual vintage ride has been canceled. So every year they have a vintage snowmobile ride. And I guess based on all their photographs, they have hundreds of people part of this club, all with these antique snowmobiles that are out of the 60s or 70s it looks. And all hundreds of these people show up, and I guess they go on these trails. And these trails go on for miles and miles. On the About page, they have a subcategory called Trail System. Night Riders maintain trails in the following towns: Hillsborough, Deering, Windsor, Antrim, and Bennington. So these trails go on for miles. They stretch over 5 different towns. So what is interesting to note about this website is that most of these photographs are taken of vintage snowmobiles that look like something out of the 60s and 70s. Even these banner type photographs do not show later model snowmobiles. So you have to ask yourself, why all the attention on vintage snowmobiles? If you are a snowmobile club, the Night Riders president is listed as Steve Livingston, and on the board of directors is a Eugene Livingston. So obviously these are the guys that run Livingston's. And you would think they would be up to date on the many advances in snowmobile technology, all the new models, what the new ones can do that the old ones could not, and the advantages to buying a later model snowmobile. Especially if you're going to get on a snowmobile on this back wooded trail and then drive for many miles, 2 or 3 towns over, because if your vintage snowmobile happens to break down, how are you going to get back? What if you have a kid on the back of your snowmobile? What should you do if you just took a 15 or 20 mile ride on one of these snowmobile trails on a vintage snowmobile that then breaks down? Should you then just wade through the snow, through the woods, and then knock on everyone's door that you come across and hope that they may help you out? So what I noticed about the Night Riders snowmobile page is they don't have a safety section to the page. So with dealing with people such as this for many years now, I can tell you the name of their game is withholding information. That's what makes these types of people feel powerful. Withholding information to any aspect of life from someone who may be new. In this case, new to snowmobiling. They're not going to have a safety section on their website. In fact, they're going to try to direct your attention to an annual vintage snowmobile ride. That means it takes place once a year, and hundreds of people join it. And then throughout the website they show vintage snowmobiles as if this is a normal snowmobile to get. And what this suggests is that a vintage snowmobile is a good snowmobile to get. An old one out of the 60s or 70s is going to be a suitable alternative. Possibly if you cannot afford one of the newer ones. Possibly if you are new to snowmobiling, an old one out of the 60s or 70s is going to be a suitable alternative. But my guess is that if you're going to get on a snowmobile with your young kid, with your 10-year-old kid, with your 5-year-old kid, and then ride for 15 or 20 miles out into the woods, 2 or 3 towns away, you are going to want to have the most reliable, safe snowmobile that you could buy. You don't want an antique snowmobile that all these night riders get on once a year, and about 100 of them get on their vintage snowmobiles and then take a little ride on one of these trails. They do that once a year in some event. In my opinion, it is very irresponsible, to say the least, to have all these photographs on your snowmobile club website. It's very irresponsible, in my opinion, for the Night Rider Snowmobile Club to endorse these vintage snowmobiles without saying anything about safety or concerns on their website. As a matter of common sense, people know that older model snowmobiles, that older model machines, like cars, like anything, they will tend to break down more than a new one. That's why people sell their old cars when they get old, because they're getting ready to break down.